Well, hello, everyone. Welcome to the Healing Embodied podcast. I am your co-host, Sarah. I am the Director of Service Delivery here at Healing Embodied. And I am back for another very fun episode today where I am joined by my lovely, incredible client, Brianna. She has agreed very vulnerably and courageously to come on the podcast today and do kind of a live Q&A slash coaching session with me. I asked her to just come with a couple questions prepared and throw them at me, and we're just going to let it unfold from there. The purpose of this is really to peel back the curtain a little bit. Something challenging about this work that we do is letting people in on what the sessions look like. What are you actually signing up for and getting yourself into when you come to work with us, while also protecting and honoring our clients' privacy and confidentiality. It is a challenge that we run into. And so, Brianna, I'm really, really grateful that you are willing to come on here today and let our listeners in a little bit, let them see what we do here, how I work, what this whole thing is all about. So without further ado, I'm going to pass it over to you and yeah, jump on in. What do you have for me today?
So a lot of what's been coming up recently is a lot of just shame and fear around not being good enough. It's a common thing that keeps coming up, and I can just tell that I feel like I'm on the edge of like some sort of breakthrough, but I'm getting a lot of like resistance of like history and experiences that I've had have just shown that like I'm not good enough. Even last night I had a dream that my partner that I'm with right now decided that he didn't want to be with me anymore. And so then I decided to go back to an ex of mine who was relatively emotionally abusive, and he didn't want me either. And so then, I had this like, I'm not good enough for anyone, even someone who like didn't want to, who just like wasn't a very good person to me. And then even related to work too, like I just have this constant fear of just like someone somewhere, whether that's my boss or someone at the company, is going to figure out that like I don't actually know anything, which is like complete BS, quite frankly. And it's just like a constant battle with like trying to put reason into it, but also just trying to connect with the part that like just doesn't feel good enough and feels like that imposter syndrome in a lot of different aspects of my life. Yeah, so it's like it's a lot of what's just been coming up is just like not being good enough and not feeling really like confident in my skin and that I'm like going to be enough.
Yeah, absolutely. What an ouchy dream. The whole time you were talking, I was like, oh gosh, like that sounds horrible. Oh, yeah. So there's so many different like ways we could take this. There's a lot of different parts here. One is the shame that you're talking to, right? Where you're speaking about that shame, that experience, that voice in your head that's saying you're not good enough, that's showing up in your relationship, in your dreams, in your career, right? Just this kind of ongoing repetitive voice saying, you're not enough, you're not good enough. Everyone's going to see and find out that you're not good enough. That's the voice of shame, right? And so part of this is kind of working with the shame, looking at the emotions that are under there, where that stems from, whose voice that actually is, starting to uproot that, which I know you've been working with, right? You've been working with shame for a little while now. The other part of this is really starting to root into your own sense of worth, right? So it's looking at the voice that says you're not worthy while also simultaneously rooting into your own worth. I remember when I was dealing with a lot of imposter syndrome in my life. You might have heard me even say this before, Brianna. I kind of got to a point after I'd been working with shame for a long time. This was not the first step for me. I'd been working with shame for a long time. But I got to this point that I was noticing the repetitive shame cycle coming up, saying you're not good enough, you're not good enough, and look at all of this evidence that you're not good enough. And I was at the point in my healing that like I knew what that was. I could recognize it as shame right away. I could work to activate my inner advocate, like all of that good stuff. I could do that. And yet it was still happening. And I had this moment with myself where I was like, Sarah, like this was a very loving, it was not a shameful, it was not a judgmental thing. It was a really warm, loving, like come to Jesus moment with myself of like, if we want to move past this, we have to be just as willing to see and value the evidence that we are worthy as we are the evidence that we're not, right? Because I was very willing to see the evidence that I wasn't worthy and less willing to see the evidence that I was. It was harder to see the evidence that I was without going into the like, well, yeah, but, right? And that just kept me in a repetitive cycle because we can't argue with shame. We can't convince shame that we're good enough. If we try to convince shame that we're good enough, it's going to be a constant like, yes, you are. No, you're not. Yes, you are. No, you're not. Yes, I am. No, you're not. Yes, you are. And that's just the dialogue for the rest of our lives, right? So I kind of had to say to myself, like, we got to be just as willing to see the evidence that like we're actually a pretty good person and like good at our jobs and people like us and like being around us and be willing to see that and to hold that and to root into that in these moments instead of just like, oh, but look at all of this evidence that I'm not. Like, how can I actually root into that? And that has been a really big shift for me. And again, and I'm saying this to you because I know kind of where you're at in your shame healing journey, that this was not step one, right? This is not step one. If we start there, it's probably just going to feel really judgmental and shaming, right? Because we haven't honored the parts of us that have been so deeply hurt by the shame. We first have to be with the parts that have been so deeply wounded and hurt by this voice that we carry with us that says you're not good enough. And as we tend to those parts and build the trust in there, then we can start to like usher those parts into adulthood, so to speak, say like, all right, let's do this thing. Let's do this. Like you are worthy and let's believe that. Let's live with that now. Yeah, I'm curious what that's bringing up for you as I'm kind of talking through this.
So when there's something that came up, I have talked about before how a lot of times I feel instead of having like emotions or thoughts come from like the head down, they've been coming sometimes from like the body up. And the immediate thought was, I think you said, oh, like you are a good person, you are a nice person. And I was like, yeah, I am a nice person. And then the thought came up from like my body where it's like, but you're too emotional. You've been told that your whole life that you're too emotional and you need to get a thicker skin and not be so sensitive and all of that. And like, so I have this like weird thing where it's like I really value being a good person and being a kind person. But then I have this like weird like piece of me that's also just like, but you've been told your whole life that like that's almost like a weakness too, and you shouldn't be so sensitive. And it's just a very weird like double, almost like a double standard that's coming up. And then when you're talking about like the the inner advocate, like I feel like if we're thinking about, because it's springtime, I was thinking about like people are putting seedlings in right now and starting to like get things to propagate and start growing. Like my seedling is like just at the beginning stages of like getting there. Like I can feel that inner advocate trying to like grow, but this other piece is like, you know, an oak tree that just can't get cut down, you know? So yeah, that's kind of like, I think it's coming up a little bit with me.
Yeah, I mean, I'm hearing this like younger part of you. That's the part that's been told her whole life, like, you're too sensitive, get a thicker skin. This is a problem. This is a flaw. This is a bad part of you. Like, this is wrong, right? And so she's just heard this over and over and over and over and over and has seen evidence of it from the external world. And so now that you are adult, you is providing her with different information and with a different way of looking at herself, she's kind of like glitching a bit, right? It's like, but, but what? Like, I don't get it. It doesn't make sense. Like, that doesn't align with what I know about myself. And so it is this process of, it's kind of like disillusionment in a way, but the opposite. We usually think of disillusionment as like something that we viewed as so wonderful and beautiful, like kind of seeing the dark side of it. It's kind of the opposite. It's like, I have believed that I suck for so many years. And so my life has kind of grown around this belief that I suck. And now I'm being handed this different belief, this opportunity to believe something different about myself. And you're bumping into like, that's a clunky process. That's a clunky process. And that's hard. And that takes repetition, right? If you just walk up to younger you and you're like, hey, by the way, you don't suck and you're great. She's not going to be like, cool, thanks for letting me know. It's going to take a lot of time. It's going to take repetition. And I think you spoke in the beginning here of like, I feel like I'm on the precipice of like a breakthrough or like something's happening. And I think you're kind of feeling that moment where it's starting to take root. So the shame is coming up, but it's not feeling the same way it's always felt. Like something's feeling different here, right? And we don't even need to like define it with words or with thoughts. It's just something's happening. Something's feeling different. Something different is taking root. Yes, yeah. Brianna's cat just walked in with his little Easter bow, and I've been waiting for him to show up, and I'm so happy. Honorable mention for Theo. We love Theo. Yeah, and so like I think that's kind of the glitchy kind of like, oh, it's happening, but it's not fully there yet piece. I feel like there was something else I was going to say with that, but it's escaping me, so probably wasn't that important.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It feels like I can't remember what I was doing. Maybe it was after like our last group session where I felt the shame story of like something happened at work and I was just really frustrated and I was like, I don't understand like why they got involved in this conversation, and is it because they don't feel like I'm giving them enough support? Do they think I'm not doing a good job? And then of course that story came again of like someone's gonna figure it out and I'm gonna get fired or I'm gonna do this. Um and I was able to recognize it as shame and be like, okay, I know like what exactly is coming up here and like that can't be true. And I kind of said out loud, like, I trust the universe, so to speak, to take care of me. And that if something did happen where, you know, maybe this particular person gets to take my job for whatever reason. Like that's the worst case scenario in my head. That something a door will be open that's even better than what I'm experiencing now, which is quite frankly a lot of shame in that. But there was still a lot of like resistance where it was like, I don't know if I believe you. And I tried to like talk to that, like, I don't know if I believe you part of me, and just being like, we got to trust it. We got to trust the process. And yeah, it's like, it's there, but it's like, I don't know if I believe you. Like, I'm not sure.
Yeah. And so see if you can like feel into that part even now, that younger part of you that has been told her whole life in various ways that she's not good enough, that she's too much, she's too emotional, various versions of that same story over and over. Ooh. And first, just validate for her, like, I'm asking you to trust in something and believe in something that's completely opposite of what you've heard your whole life. Of course, that's going to be hard. Of course, that's confusing. And let her know you will be there to remind her every step of the way for as long as she needs. You're not going anywhere. You're not going anywhere, but that old belief of I'm not good enough and I'm too much, that ends now. That ends with you. Nobody gets to tell her that anymore or make her believe that anymore.
Mm. She just said, but like some people that you really love and respect told you that, and how can we how can you believe that, you know?
Mhm, mhm. Yeah, just stay with that emotion. Stay with that.
Mhm.
Just be there with her. And just feel into what she's needing. The situation is really nuanced. She's a kid, right? This is your inner child. And it is hard for anybody, but especially kids, little brains and bodies, to hold and understand the nuance of something I've always been told might not be true. And I can love and respect people and disagree with something they tell me. And I can change my mind about people. But a whole lot of nuance for a little brain and body to hold.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, I think she's a little confused because it's just like, not only has she been told that like she's too emotional, she's too sensitive, but um then there's been judgment passed on other people for behaving certain ways and not a lot of forgiveness shown, I guess, too. So like I don't think she was given much of an example of like how to forgive when wrongs were made. And so I think it's then coming into adulthood where it's like, I don't even know sometimes how to properly forgive either. And that like includes myself too, right? Like I think if I make I think I need to, I think she needs I think she needs to be shown forgiveness.
Yeah. Yeah. And this is the power of younger self work, inner child work through the body, is that you, adult you, sitting here in the room right now, get to give her that, what she wasn't given in the past. She wasn't modeled how to love herself. She wasn't modeled how to forgive, how to set boundaries, how to advocate for herself, how to be curious, how to ask questions and say, that doesn't actually feel good to me. I don't want to believe that. Right? She wasn't given that. And so you get to give that to her. And big note here, that doesn't mean that you have to know how to do it perfectly. Present moment you does not have to master forgiveness and self-love in order to teach her. You can let her know, like, I'm learning this too.
Mm-hmm.
I'm learning this too. And we're going to learn it together. We're going to learn it together. Mm-hmm.
I can't tell if I'm sad because of like present or if my younger version's sad.
Mm-hmm. And just be with the sadness for a moment. You don't have to necessarily define it or know exactly where it's coming from. Just come into it in the body. Notice the sensations. Just breathe with that emotion. Mm.
Mm.
Just notice what your body wants to do with that. It might just want to hold it. There might be movement or self-touch or breath. But just for a moment, it doesn't have to be a big, long, fancy thing. Just be with that sadness. Mm-hmm.
Mm.
Mm-hmm.
Just look down at my feet and they're like tensed up.
Mm. Mm.
I feel like there's like a lot of just like my for some reason my legs and my feet when I'm like in some emotional like discomfort really tense up, and then I'll notice it and I'll hold it and then I kind of release, and I can feel it kind of like going out of my like legs and feet.
Mm.
Just like feels it feels really good, but it just also feels very silly.
Mm-hmm. A lot of this stuff feels pretty silly. We're doing some silly stuff in here, right? But your body is so smart. Like your body stores what it can, it holds it, it funnels it into the place it needs it in, and then it releases it when it's ready. Your body's so smart. And when we look at it through the lens of the brain, it is like, what the fuck is happening? Like, this is so weird and bizarre. right?
Yeah.
Let it be weird and bizarre. You know, I love a little weird, bizarre silliness.
Ugh.
Take just another moment to just wiggle, breathe. Just feel into if there's anything else little you is wanting to hear, anything adult you is wanting to say or express before we start to let this movement practice dissolve. Just take one more moment.
Oh. I just want to remind myself that like the universe has gotten me like this far in life and through all of the like stress, the sadness, the heartbreak, the bullying, all of it, like I've made it this far and I'm very well respected when it comes to like my career. I can't help if like communication isn't like a strong suit of some of the people that I work with. Um, and that like I need to trust like my partner as well, who is a beautiful communicator and tells me like all the time that I need to trust him. I just need to trust that he'll tell me if there's something going on. And like, I think then in turn, I need to remind my younger self that like I will communicate my needs as well, whether that's like to her or outward as well.
Yeah, I love that. Your track record of getting through difficult moments in life so far is 100%. You have made it through every single obstacle of life, right? And so you can believe that you'll get through more.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. And even with the like, I need to trust, maybe shifting slightly to like, I'm open to trusting my partner, or I'm willing to practice trusting my partner, or trusting myself or the universe.
Yeah. I like that's more, that's less pressure.
Exactly. Yeah.
Mm. Yeah, as soon as you said that, I felt even just like a
Because when we put a need on it, like, I need to do this thing, I need to do this thing, then if we don't do that thing or we bump into a barrier, it becomes like a failure for some reason versus like, I'm willing to practice it. And then it's just practice. It's just practice. You can't fail practice, right? You're just trying out a new skill. And the skill is trust and releasing control. Mm.
yeah.
Mm. Nice work.
Uh,
Yeah,
so,
that was a juicy one.
yeah.
Uh-huh.
It it's a constant reminding process, right? Of that like I can handle it. I think anxious brains, OCD brains are going to um tack on to anything and everything. And like when I really value how I'm presenting myself to the world, and I really value wanting to be this like confident, nice, kind person who's trying to give space for others' emotions, but is unwilling really to do that for myself. It's giving the priority and the power to the others rather than a little bit more of like self empowerment.
Yeah, absolutely. Mm. Something that's been helpful for me too is in those moments of like, I can handle this when the shame is saying, no, you can't, no, you can't. Are you sure? How do you know? I don't know. And I'm trying to say, like, I can, is stepping back and seeing, like, I already am. I'm already handling this. I've been handling this. Like, maybe it feels horribly uncomfortable. Sometimes when something feels uncomfortable, we associate that with not handling it, but it can be uncomfortable and you can still be handling it perfectly fine.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Mm. Mm. Good stuff. Good stuff. Uh, um, yeah,
Yeah, that felt really, really good.
good.
Yeah.
So I think we would have time for probably like a short question if you have one. If that feels like I'm good, I'm tapped for today, totally fine. We can honor that. Or if you do have a quick one or something I can just kind of talk through. We have
Mm-hmm.
time if we want to dive into that. Also, my camera's blurry, so I'm just going to turn it off real quick and turn it back on. One sec.
Good.
I'm back. Okay.
You're it's too funny. Um, yeah, I think so. I've noticed something about like uh I'm trying to think of how to like approach the question, but I was just on vacation, and I went with my parents, and they've been married now for 31 years, and I just noticed the relationship dynamic is like different, right, than what I had like previously noticed. I think as a kid you have this like whole like romanticized view of your parents' relationship. And I notice a lot of just like general like passive aggressiveness, I guess, too. And then I think I have this like fear, and maybe this is again shame coming up, that like that will be me and my relationship in 31 years. And I know I'm not alone in that fear of seeing that, but like it makes me panic. It also is like, oh my gosh, are my parents like happy? And is that what my relationship's gonna be like? Am I happy with that? So then I have this like push and pull of like, help your parents being the mediator between the two of them. And then two, like, don't ever let your relationship get that way because that means something. Yeah.
It sounds like you were on vacation with my family. Like I'm over here like, yep, yeah, preaching to the choir over here. 100%. It's so hard and weird as as adult children to see your parents and their marriage and their dynamic in this new light. It is, I mean, talk about disillusionment, right? There's this moment of like, what? Like, this is how you guys talk to each other? This is not what I remember or what I want for you. And it like, it's a lot of managing our own discomfort in the moment. Um, and not like parenting our parents or taking on the responsibility for shifting their behaviors and their patterns, right? Like that's not your responsibility. You like their marriage and their dynamics is not your responsibility, but it tends to poke at that part of us that wants to fix and wants to take care and wants like just everything to be good and right, right? I think something that comes up a lot with this sort of thing is that we see a relationship dynamic. Maybe it's with our parents, maybe it's in the media, maybe it's friends, maybe it's an ex, whatever it is. We see a relationship dynamic that we don't want, that we don't like you're saying, the more passive aggressive communication style. And you're like, oh, I don't want that in my life and in my relationship. That doesn't work for me. That doesn't fit for me. And so we can go down the route of fear of like, I'm afraid that's going to happen. So I'm going to do everything in my power to make sure that doesn't happen. That is what often leads to things like overthinking and trying to control and almost like over communication or under communication or bouncing from one extreme to the other or nitpicking our partner's communication style all the time. That is where the very fear-based patterns come in, because we're functioning from this belief and this relationship to the passive aggressiveness that you're saying of, I don't like that. I'm afraid of that. And so I'm going to act out of fear to make sure that thing never happens. And often when we do that, we create that thing, right? Or we create other dynamics we don't want. Fear just creates fear. Fear does not create like connection and love, right? Which is what you're wanting. So that's one route we can go down. We can also see that and notice, I don't like that much. I really don't want that to be a part of my relationship. And so instead, focusing on strengthening all of the aspects of the relationship that could make it so that that dynamic wouldn't thrive, even if it showed up. Things like healthy communication, right? Paying attention to how you are communicating your wants, needs, desires, emotions to your partner, paying attention to how your partner prefers to communicate, creating an environment in the relationship where it's really, really safe for both of you to give and receive feedback to the other person, creating an environment in the relationship where your emotions are seen and loved and valued, creating an environment in the relationship where you are not outsourcing responsibility for your own happiness and regulation to your partner, honoring your own values and needs, right? Like work on strengthening all of those things. And then passive aggressive dynamics, if they were to show up in the relationship, they're not going to thrive, right? They're not going to take root. You might have one moment where you're kind of passive aggressive or your partner is. I do it to my husband all the time. And then he calls me out on it and I feel uncomfortable and I sit with it for a little bit. And then I say, I'm sorry, can you please take out the trash? And he says, sure, of course. Thanks for asking it in that way. And then it's done, right? Instead of it always becoming a pattern, right? It's the pattern that you don't want. And so instead of like just approaching it from fear and acting from the fear-based patterns, which just create a dynamic that you don't want. It might be passive aggressive, but it's not going to feel good or be supportive. Strengthen all of the things that create the connection and the love and the dynamic that you do want, right? It's focusing on what you do want versus just what you don't want. And it's coming from this place of like love and respecting the relationship versus fear and just trying to avoid something. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Yeah, I think I listened a little, like I wasn't able to listen to the whole thing. It's my goal today is to listen to the session yesterday, the Just Say It. I started listening to it though, and I even just like, I think you brought up the like, what do I want for dinner? And it's like, oh, I want tacos, but like, oh no, maybe spaghetti. No, I think I want tacos. Like just something like that simple, like I think is a good practice. And um it's funny because yesterday I did it a little bit I think sassy-ish on accident, but one of my coworkers was asking me something. I said, and they said, they're like, do you want to come over and look at this? And I said, do you want me to come over? I was like, just say what you want. um so now I think I think I need to like do better at communicating what I want and being more like connected with what's going on in here. Because I think like my partner and I have like we're at the point in our relationship now. We've, lived with each other now for about 2 months. We've been dating for about a year and a half. That like we're starting to get comfortable to show that very emotional side. And it's been an interesting dynamic because our arguments where they were more like kind of level, like you could still tell emotions were spiking, they're starting to get a little bit more like heated. We're not like yelling at each other, but just like a little bit more heated. And I think like even for my partner, like having him see me being like, I would like this because this is what I specifically want, would definitely assist him as well with like being able to do that too and bring that in.
Yeah, I've noticed that same thing in my marriage with my husband is I am definitely the one who leans more toward passive aggressive tendencies because that's what I've seen with my mom and my dad. And being direct has felt very scary and vulnerable for me. And I've been working really, really hard at it. And there was one day a couple months ago, we were trying to plan just like a little day trip together. And we were going back and forth on plans and back and back and back and forth. And I finally was like, okay, here's what I think we should do. Let's do this and this and this, and then we'll come home and we'll do this, whatever. I just like laid out the whole plan. And he started laughing. And I was like, what? And he was like, you're just being so helpful. Like, you're so helpful right now. and, and it was just a really funny, cute moment of like, oh, okay. It's helpful for him when I do this. Um, and something I would encourage as you're practicing this is start small. Like you said, like, what do I want for dinner? Or these little things and celebrate the wins. Like my husband and I had a moment recently. We have like, it was like vitamin pill containers, one for each of us. And I pulled them out in the morning. We take our little vitamins. And then I put mine back in the drawer and he usually leaves his out. And then it stays out all day until I put it back. And it's the smallest thing. It's so insignificant, but it bothered me. And because it felt insignificant, I brushed it off we've lived together now for 6 years. So brushed it off for a long time. And then finally I was like, hey, can you do me a favor? And he's like, sure. And I said, after you take your vitamins, can you put the pill container back in the drawer? He said, sure. And he's done it every single day since then. And I like had a little moment where I like went in the office by myself and I celebrated. I was like, yes, I did it. I said the thing. And it's like such a small thing that I think we can really easily brush past it. But when we practice it and celebrate it in little tiny ways, then it builds the trust and the momentum and the courage to start doing it in bigger ways and to make bigger requests or share more vulnerable things or more emotionally charged things. And it just continues to create an environment of safety and trust and connection within the relationship. And guess what? When you have a firm foundation of the safety, respect, connection, communication, passive aggressive tendencies just won't thrive. They'll show up. They'll show up. We all have the capacity to be passive aggressive sometimes, but they won't thrive. You'll feel it and you'll be like, ugh, that didn't feel good. That's not in line with what I want. And you'll shift.
Mm-hmm.
But it will be coming from love versus from fear.
Yeah. Yeah, I like that. I mean, communication and not necessarily bringing that dynamic into our relationship is going to be really, really important to me, because I think like I want that to be just the base of how like our family's built too, right? So
Yeah. And my husband and I have talked before. We've said like we don't want to do what our parents did. Like we don't like either of the dynamics that our sets of parents have. They're lovely people. We adore them. We don't want our marriage to be like that. And so we've said that before of like, this is not something we want. So we're going to work hard to strengthen the things that we do want. And so just even that little conversation felt really good to know like we're on the same team with this.
yeah.
Mm. Good questions. Good things to explore today. Thank you so, so much again, Brianna, for being vulnerable and courageous and open to jumping on here, letting our listeners and viewers see you, hear you, dive into this work a little bit. I can guarantee you people listening probably resonated quite a bit with what you were sharing. So I really appreciate it. And for anyone listening or watching, if you are interested in working with me or with us at Healing Embodied, or just getting deeper into our world, I will have everything linked in the description, the show notes of all the ways you can work with us, all the ways you can dive into our world. What I would suggest is hopping on a free 15-minute clarity call with Brianna. She's our client relations manager. She is a lovely, fantastic human. And she can talk through what you're experiencing, all that we have to offer, and help kind of guide you in the right direction, because we know it can be confusing and a big leap of faith to jump into this work. So I will have everything linked below, and I hope this was helpful. Thank you so much again, Brianna.
Yep, thank you.